What's up, everybody? GR Zerza here with another video with some very important, very interesting news that came out today. But first, before we get started, I wanted to update all of you about my wife's status. We had done an auction to raise money for her cancer treatment, and that went splendidly. We got a lot of feedback. A lot of people were bidding. The mystery lot went for a whole bunch of money, and people were donating cards to make it bigger. So from the bottom of my heart, I really want to thank everybody for doing that. Shortly after that, my brother had made a GoFundMe, and as you can see, we are very close to getting the goal to cover the money we did not have for the deductible. We did get insurance, and she is now going into her third round of chemo. So thank you to everybody. I'll have a link in the description below so that if you want to share or donate, you can do that. Moving on, I have Josh Sprung joining me today, and we are going to be talking about the new news. So hello, Josh.
Hello.
So tell me a little bit about how long you've been playing Force of Will before we jump into this, just so people can kind of get a gauge of where you're at.
I guess I started playing Force of Will when actually the Toys R Us in town here. I just happened to walk past a and they had the old I don't even know what they were called. It was like the old Valhalla starter decks.
Okay.
It was basically the first set that came to the U.S. and I think at the time it was just starter decks.
Okay, so over time, you've seen different iterations of formats on the cards, so this is nothing new to you, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so when you first saw this, what was your knee-jerk reaction?
Well, when you sent me the link today and I looked at it, I was just like, wow, that's a prototype.
Okay, so you don't think this is the finished product?
It just looks like a prototype. Like, I can't imagine that being a finished product. If it is, I'm a little concerned.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I had made a post earlier today that, I'm on the Bucket Brigade. I have been very positive about this game, and I used to be a naysayer, but it's very hard to look at this and not say, why? Why are you doing this? Like, the cards are gorgeous. I can't imagine why they would change it unless there's some legal reason they need to do so because a new company is taken over. There might be some legality there, but no one's been able to answer that. So I don't know if that's the reason or if they're just trying to put their stamp on this as being like, these are our cards now. But
I suspect that's the case, is that they want to make it their own now that they're their own kind of thing.
Yeah, and some of the first things that stand out to me is the will, like icon here. Here, let me pull up a closer.
If you scroll down on the Quickcast section, it shows it really super huge.
Yeah, let me pull that up. Hang on, I'll just scroll down. Okay, there it is. Yeah. So one thing that a lot of people have mentioned, and it was something that I even mentioned a couple of months ago when I was just casually talking about the game, is there's a lot of like style and flavor when you see a Force of Will card. You kind of like know, oh, that's a Force of Will card. And one of the things was Quickcast always had lightning around it. So if I were to, here, let me pull up Untap here and pull it, like, just go over Dark Atlas right now, and I can see like there's actually lightning around, and I know that card has Quickcast. From that and from the white text box that says Quickcast that kind of jumps out at you, and I'm seeing on the new cards that they're kind of taking those away, unless, like you said, this is a template and someone just like went into their print shop and just typed in like bracket enter, greater than like
yeah.
So you think this is a prototype, and that like the actual artist hasn't like gone in and said, okay, I see what your goal is, and I'm gonna make that happen?
Yeah. So I create games. I'm a game designer on the side, and when I'm making a new card or a template, I'll do these kinds of things. If you look at the text box, for example,
right?
The box is huge.
It's really
to
big.
Allow for like an enormous amount of text, and there's that tiny font in there. Um,
Right.
so I would do that as a designer when I'm not sure how much text is going to be on a specific card, and I want to make sure that this box can incorporate any amount of text that I would ever possibly add to a card.
Right.
So just looking at these, it looks pretty silly right now, but it would be fine for like play testing or things like that.
Yeah. So you assume, like, let's take Dextra. Enter, this card deals 1,000 damage to target player. You assume that they would make that font bigger and centered, and then have like an enter. What do you call that? Like a border around the enter word, so it pops out a bit
like
more.
turn it into an icon, like iconify the enter
Right.
that they've done in the past. And I always liked that about Force of Will when they turned special keywords into
Icons.
a little bubble icon of sorts, and it really stands out on the card.
Yep. Like the mana symbol or the will symbols too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Games like Magic the Gathering, they would use keywords, which is fine, but it doesn't really pop out at you when you're looking at the card.
Right.
And then going beyond that, if you look at Yu-Gi-Oh, they don't even use keywords. I mean, they just spell out everything in a sea of text. Really hard to read. So I always liked Force of Will's, little call out keyword bubbles. That was always great because you just know exactly what they are.
Better for new players and for players who might not have every single card memorized and are going to attack or block and then realize, oh, that has first strike, or you know what I mean? Like that's going to kill my guy and I get nothing. So always good. What do you think about the staying near the will symbols, the nameplates? What do you think about those?
Those are okay, but again, we see some pretty small text there.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, I really liked the layout of Force of Will because it really tended to focus on the artwork, which was always beautiful and amazing, and what really attracted me to the game to begin with. And you see this new format with this giant text box. It's not really showing off the artwork. It's more, to me, it's like a template, a placeholder for a bunch of text.
Yeah, because
if they ever wanted to use all that.
Right, and the theme that I had seen over the years when they would make small changes to the format, they wanted more and more of the art to be shown. I noticed that every time they made changes, they'd be like, look, the frame is gone. Like the art goes all the way to the corners of the card, and now the nameplates are going to be less intrusive. They're going to be more see-through, so you can see what's behind them, and the lettering will be the only part that's bigger, because we know people complain that lettering was hard to read at first. So and then this seems to be taking that step backwards. Like, I'm not trying to sound too negative, but like I feel like they're going back in time to before they made all those changes to make the artwork pop a little bit more. And I was
just gonna say, I think it's less about going back in time, because even the old cards tried to show off the artwork more, tried to make it a little different. This, to me, almost looks like they're trying to make it look more generic, more like Magic, for example, to I guess maybe to attract more players, or like Magic players possibly.
Okay, so that they would feel more comfortable.
Familiar.
Yeah. That makes sense. And speaking of that, I noticed that they moved the power and toughness, or attack and defense, down to the bottom right.
Yeah, I really don't like that, because I thought that was a really cool move in Curse of the Frozen Casket when they put it on the side.
Yeah.
Because really, only time that the attack and defense is relevant is when your guy's sideways.
Right, and attacking, and your opponent can literally read it right side up.
It just looked different too.
Yeah,
it just looked that much different from other games.
Right, and that's something that I noticed too. Is when I would fan the cards out in my hand, I could see the will cost, the beginning of the name, and I could see the attack and defense.
Yeah, I thought that was great, and I love that they did that, and I was a big fan of that. But it looks like they're going to something more like standard TCG. I don't know, blandness.
Yeah, the regular formula that Magic made such a long time ago, and
Right.
like Magic did a lot of things right, but admittedly, like when you look back, there's not a lot of functionality to putting power and toughness in the bottom right corner and having the
Right.
mana cost on the top right, where you can't see, like if you fan your hand out, you can't see any of the any of the mana costs. So but with this game, they put it on the top left. In fact, there was a set in Magic called Future Sight, where
Yep.
like
Yep.
Tarmogoyf had its mana cost on the top
Um,
left, and I believe I can't remember if they did the power and toughness on the side or not. But
I'm trying to remember too. I'll look it up right now because I was a fan of that style.
yeah, and I remember asking somebody why did they switch the where the mana is, and they said go ahead and fan your hand out, and I did. I go, oh, like that was the first
Yeah.
thing I noticed is I can see the mana cost. So
Yep.
yeah, that's interesting. So what do you think
yeah.
about?
They put,
Oh, go
they
ahead.
put the man on the top left, and then but the power and toughness is still on the bottom right, which
Okay.
is
So they didn't have the future sight to know to put that over.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the company and the community relationship? Like, do you think that they will listen to us and make changes accordingly, or do you think they'll maybe one thing that Jeremy from Ruler School had said to me is maybe they'll try this and then see what everyone thinks once we see the cards in physical form, and then maybe they'll make changes after that to let us know that they do listen to us.
Yeah.
What, from your perspective, what do you think's going on here?
Well, I mean, my hipfire reaction is that they're trying to make it more like Magic, style-wise, to attract Magic players, I believe.
Okay.
But these also don't look finalized. So maybe what they're doing, and I think what you just described, where they would release the first set and then listen to the community and then change accordingly, I don't think that makes good sense. What does make good sense is if they posted a link to their site like this and said, "Hey, this is what we're going to be doing," and then listen to the community before they print.
Mhm.
Because they're probably, whatever they end up with, they're going to be sticking with that format or that template for the next 5-6 years or so.
And
Um,
I also wanted to point out it's a little bit strange that they're doing it in the middle of a block. Like we're not done, so you're gonna have Alice Origins cards that look different from each other, and that to me seems weird.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I thought this was the next set.
no, I might be wrong there, but this, I mean,
I wonder if it says when it's going to happen.
if they are gonna do it for Alice Origins, I think that's a bad move, because if you're a collector and you have your binders all set up and you've got your cards laid out and they look different, like that's gonna be like OCD, man. That's gonna bug people.
Here's the text here. It says, also, this new design is adapted from Prologue of Ataraxia, Alice Origin 4th Booster, AO4.
Yes, so same
But
set.
you can check it on the teaching deck ahead of time.
Yeah,
Wow, that's strange.
it's
So
very
there might
strange.
be some legal reason why they're doing it then.
Maybe, but like, couldn't you just make small changes? Like, if it was like if it was like you bought the company, now legally you have to change something, couldn't you just like change the text box slightly, or I don't know, like change the font a little bit, or like
I want to say legally they have to change it. I want to say like 30% or something like that. That's just a number I've heard before.
okay.
So if you change the template by somewhere around 30%, then you're okay, and it's not considered.
Okay.
Or
So
knockoff.
So I'm gonna scroll down now to the J ruler. Christy, why don't you tell me what you think about this? Like, we're gonna go past the basic magic stone, which everyone's like, oh, that looks great. Yeah, how hard is it to mess up?
Yeah, it looks great.
How hard is it to mess up a basic stone?
Yeah.
Like, come on, you just make it full art and write stone on it. Like, moving on. J-Ruler, what do you think?
J-Ruler. I think, honestly, the front side, the ruler side, actually kind of makes sense in that it, to me, compared to other cards from the past, it's not necessarily like quote unquote in play in terms of like something that can attack or block. So actually, the ruler side looks fine to me as a ruler, but the fact that the other resonator card up above looks almost the same. I mean, it's really not that different. That really makes the ruler, compared to those resonators, just a really bland looking resonator. They could have at least like upped the full artness of it or something to make it stand out. I don't know.
You're talking about Pursuer of Vampires Helsing, right?
Well, I'm talking about Bounty Hunter Christie, the ruler side.
Gotcha.
Even that looks so similar to the resonator.
Yeah.
And then when you flip it over, okay, that's cool. It's got that little Force of Will stamp on underneath it, but the text, they took out the opacity on that text, so it's harder to read because it's microscopic text. And
then they left the border, which to me that it just looks kind of weird.
Yeah, why keep the border?
Yeah. Because the 1200 box, I feel like would stand out on its own without the border. So yeah. I just feel like, I don't know.
It just looks like a harder to read resonator.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to say with all this, like, try to be positive. This isn't the end of the world. This isn't.
Yeah, the basic stones look great.
Yeah, we could just play with basic stones and nothing else. But no, the one thing that, like, so there was cards in the past that I had bought because they looked so nice. I had no plans of putting them into decks, but it was just like the collector side of me. You know, I'm a competitor first, but in the collector second. I had to own it. And these cards don't do that to me. I mean, I look at these and I'm just like, I don't have that itch to own these. So the only way I would buy it is if I was going to a tournament and like I was going to run 2 of them in my sideboard or something, like, or I would just borrow them. So that to me feels like that would affect sales, because if it don't look pretty, you know, and it's not something you need, you know, mechanically speaking, when building a deck, then you're not going to need to scratch that itch and, you know, buy a bunch of sealed, or, you know, or go online and like finish out your play sets and, you know, have everything look nice and uniform. So that was something that kind of stood out to me. But one thing I want to say is, rather than like, you know, there's a difference between criticism and complaining. So if you're on Facebook or any other social media and you're complaining to the masses that you're going to quit the game and this and that, like, you're not helping. If you want to say something specifically, like someone had said, I don't like that the lightning's gone on Quickcast, and they just drew in a lightning symbol in the middle. Like, I don't like that. That's constructive criticism. That's saying,
exactly,
here's something that's great and you took it away, and this is why I think that's bad. So what did I do? I wrote the company, and I'm showing on my screen right now your request has been sent. I emailed them. Whether or not they'll listen to me, I have no idea. But that's what you should do. Like, if everybody does this and they have an overwhelming amount of emails all saying very similar things, you know, and it's not like super negative and I'm going to quit the game and F you guys, or, you know, like that's my advice. If you want change, you have to do it the right way. And that's true for so many things in general in life. So yeah, I think that's going to cover that. I want to jump into item number 2, which is I've been on hiatus for a bit because of the stuff going on with my wife and because of coronavirus. And I hope everybody is staying safe and being smart. So what has happened to like your local scene since coronavirus happened?
Well, it doesn't exist right now, as far as I could tell. We had a couple long-standing members that kind of dropped off during the whole stay-at-home order.
Right.
And really, the only thing that I've been doing Force of Will wise for the last probably I don't know how many months, 3 months or so.
Yeah,
Is
3.
just playing on Lackey actually, because I never got the Untap just never worked very well for me and the other people that played. But the Lackey works great, so we've been playing on Lackey.
Okay, so you're doing just like casual online games.
Yeah, very casual.
No pre-releases, no meetups.
Right. No physical meetups until like last week. Started meeting up just with Eric, just for one-on-one casual.
Okay, so not like a big group. It's like, hey,
No.
are you sick? No, I'm not sick. Okay, let's meet up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I really hope that you guys are being safe. And I really hope things get back to normal soon, so that because this game to me is so much better in person with the physical cards. There's just something about the way
you can't beat it.
The way they shuffle, the way they look, the shiny ones, and some of the full art, and yeah. So the other day I just wanted to kind of dip my toe, and I played with Jeremy from Ruler School, and I just said, just send me a list. I don't even care what it is, just a competitive list. So he sent me Rezard, and I've got this pulled up now, and I sent you a screenshot if you want to take a look at it with me here.
Okay.
So one thing people had been complaining about, well, not complain. Yeah, I'll just say that the power level of this game has been creeping up pretty fast in the last couple of sets.
Yeah, I think creeping is not the right term.
Right, it's more like it's taken some bigger steps. And one thing that I noticed here, and I'll kind of like set up what happened. He was playing Arla, so game one, I had fished the deck out like once, and a lot of the cards, the new cards, I literally had to like read them after he sent me the list. And so I had started out, I mulliganed because I didn't have Mikage Rhea, and I was like, I feel like this is kind of like how you get started. So I ended up getting like a Death Scythe and getting the Stranger in the graveyard that lets you get a free black every turn, Black Wizard. So that seemed really good, and I ended up using Look of Corruption to kind of like slow his start down. He had like a 1-drop Angel that removes your like 3 cards from your graveyard when it comes into play, and it's got Quickcast, and I'm just like, wow, that's a really good 1-drop, right? Well, by turn 4, not much had happened. And I was like, okay, he's kind of like stalling me, and I'm kind of stalling him. And then I drew Mikage, and then I won. And
yeah.
and I'm like, that's crazy. Like I went. I mean, everybody by now knows like how good Sigurd is, and like with Alter. So then he's like, okay, let's play again. And so I did, and this time I did get Mikage like in my opener, but I went to go off and got the Alter in play, right? And I'm like, sack Sigurd to Alter, and he goes, respond, play a card that lets me look at the top 4 and put like a 2-drop into play. So he does it, and he puts in another whatever the regalia is for Arla, and then and then he's like, tap the wings, play another one of those cards from my hand, look at the top 4. And so he's obviously digging for something. He flashes in this 1-drop white card that has a wall of text on it.
Yeah,
and it's got all these bow counters. And
insane.
And he goes, remove 2 counters, destroy your altar. And I'm like, okay, I'll just sack one of the other 2 creatures that I have. Like, I just want to get Dark Alice into play, right? So I just need 1 counter. He then taps his dude and says, "Put 5 counters on, remove 2 of them, destroy your altar." Before it gets its its second counter that's still like floating.
Yep.
And I'm like, wait, you can just do that infinite amount of times, and you could just keep. And then I said, wait.
He's got swiftness too.
Yeah, I said you can't do that because he just came into play. He goes, he has swiftness. I'm like,
yeah.
Why are the 1-drops so powerful? Like
they're nuts. They're nuts.
Yeah. So my question to you is, because you guys play, you said, a little bit more casually, like what does like the typical player think when they see this interaction happening?
So it's kind of funny when I'm playing with Eric in particular. We kind of have it's more or less an unspoken agreement. Like if we just play like a few cards in a sequence and it's just like disgustingly powerful, we generally just say, well, let's just not play with this deck again. So we had a lot more of those moments with the newest set, with Rezard and Arla, where like, I mean, Arla in like a casual format, it can just pump out little flyers and replace them all with crazy draw effects with the Regalia.
Mm-hmm.
And Rezard, of course, is just a reanimating machine. Like, at some point it becomes unfun because it almost feels like you're playing a game of rock, paper, scissors, kind of like what you experienced, where it's like, well, I drew this, so I win. You drew that, which counters what I drew, so you win.
Barring both players know the correct way to play.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because and after that second game, I showed Jeremy my hand. I said, look, and he looked through my grave, the hand, and we both agreed I made 0 play mistakes. And it got to a point where I literally cannot beat this white Quickcast or swiftness, bow counters. I can't beat that card.
Flying too.
Yeah, why not? I can't beat it. So, it's just, and if you look at the Rezard deck, like you're putting Griffins into play. You're perfect loking them whenever you want. You're able to protect your graveyard with 1 Dark Alice. You just need 1 slot in the deck. I mean, there's so much backup and consistency to this deck. It's absurd. Like, it's so strong. Not that I've ever been like against strong cards. I mean, but the difference is the 1-drop. Like when you make the whole deck work because of a 1-drop that has Quickcast and is like almost impossible to, you could do it on turn 1 before they even have will. You can do it when they're tapped out.
Right.
It's Quickcast. You wait till they play something on their turn. I mean, there's just so much utility and survivability in a sense. So if you being like, a game designer and all that, like what's something you would recommend that happened? Like, do you feel like this is too much? Like, where's your head state at?
Yeah, I mean, especially with the most recent set that came out, it just feels like if you're not playing with this newest set, you're possibly not winning.
Right.
If you're playing something against it, you could be in a lot of trouble, even with like the Reflect Refrain is actually a lot of fun to play. It's not nearly as competitive as the other two.
Okay.
But even against that, you're going to struggle to beat it, unless you're playing something like crazy strong from like Divinity Rulers and stuff like that. But I mean, really, the only card I've seen that could possibly get you out of those weird, if they draw and play this card, I can't win situations is actually Motoko, the 2-drop Motoko, because you can name that card. But that card is so expensive to play at 2 wills. It's tough. About the best play with that card is if you're going second and you have Energize, and you can play it on turn 1 and name a regalia or something. But
Sure.
it's not a good play. It's like there's so many things. It's got the dice to everything problem.
Yeah, and but like the thing that stood out to me about what you just said is it costs too much or so much.
Yeah, 2 wills.
Two.
Whoa,
Two.
You better be winning the game for 2 wills.
Two. Like that's kind of where we're at, and like I feel there's a ton of cards that get completely ignored because when they come out, you look at the will cost and then you just throw it in your bin.
Yeah.
If it costs 4 or 5 or 6, like
if you can't cheat it in,
right,
like
then
for
it's not
1 or
played.
2, then it's not playable.
Yeah.
And I've been like what's a good example? What's her name? The 3-drop red white Athena.
You mean Athena?
Fantastic card. You look at that card and you think this card is insane, really strong, but it doesn't do anything right now. Like even in casual play, like because it costs 3, and that's pretty rough.
You're talking about Athena, Guardian of Blaze, with the gain life and ping. Yeah, that was a card that I saw.
That's a game-winning card, but
right.
It on paper, but with the format, like it costs 3, and it's always too little, too late. If it does anything at all.
Right, and that's the thing is, I would see people playing decks that would have ways to cheat cards into play, and it's like, well, I'm like, why aren't you playing Athena? Just curious. It's like, well, I could just like put Perfect Loki in my graveyard and then bring him in. There's just something better, and even Perfect Loki has Quickcast, and he only costs 2, so he's winning you the game. Like you said, you better be winning the game. So, yeah, it's kind of a shame because I do agree with Jeremy's points that there are so many fun things with these new cards. Like I have read a lot of new cards and thought, wow, that looks really fun. But you don't get to do that. And I understand there's always going to be a separation between competitive and like the fun casual. But to me, it feels like the gap is so huge right now. It's larger than I've ever seen. I mean, we used to play when I first started with friends, and there would be times where like the fun casual deck would edge out and like beat a competitive deck here. It wasn't like it was a very low percentage, but it would happen. Now it just feels like unless like the competitive deck just says go and doesn't call a stone every turn, it can't lose. So literally getting like 3 stones into play and you win. So to me like I would consider like a good able format is where if you have a top 10, player number 10 was playing something cheesy casual, right? But the other 9 are your typical tournament winning deck. Okay.
But now, like if you're casual, like 50th place, like there's no way you can run something really really cool and fun and be competitive.
So what would you suggest they do moving forward? Like, do you want the power level to come back down, stay where it is? Like, do you want it to increase so much that like every card is just that powerful and you're both hitting grand slams every time you play a 1-drop?
There is a certain appeal to that. That's for people that like to play, Legacy, Alpha Magic, like, you know what I mean? Like, I want the game to be done in 2 turns, and every move you make is so critical that it's interesting. But if your opponent's playing anything less than that kind of power, it's no good. So to me, my fondest memories of the game was actually when they did the last frame change with Curse of the Frozen Casket, that kind of era, because it was also a huge step back in power level. That was before that. I think it was a 7 Kings of the Land where they had these crazy regalia. Everything's free and has a wall of text.
Yep.
that was nuts.
Levitine, yeah.
Yeah, and that was just crazy town and super oppressive to any casual decks. Like I used to play in tournaments at Nostalgia Inc. and I'd consistently get mid place with a really fun casual deck and have a good time. But when those Regalia came out, it was like I couldn't even top 8 ever with a super casual deck. Those around, and they were all in the starter deck, so like everyone got them, and
Yeah,
they were everywhere.
I remember that I had a friend of mine said you need to play this game. He taught me how to play, handed me Blazer Knights, and it had bows and Levitines and Death Scythe.
Yeah,
and it
well,
just said,
you just run them. You run them in every deck.
Yeah, and it had a bunch of like Guinevere. That card was busted. So my first match, this dude was playing what was it? Fairy Tales with the Epoch altered art of Grimm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, quick! Like I had to literally read every card he played, and he plays Cheshire Cat. I'm like, wow, that's busted. But then he played just a bunch of kind of like 1 and 2 drops, and then I went Flame King Shout and won, and had bows to back up. You know what I mean? Like anything he blocked with. So like he was just like, his friend came over and said, what happened? He goes, I got Flame King Shouted, and he's like, oh, okay. So like there was I feel like there was like this tipping point of, okay, these free cards that make your deck even better are a bit powerful. But yeah, I definitely think that the problem is the Stranger mechanic is great. I love it. Like
it really is good.
It's a powerful thing with some really overpowered cards that are not overpowered. Like, if that makes sense, think about that. Because the mechanic doesn't let you put them in a free hand to the side like runes, and because you can't put them in your main deck, and you have to find ways to go get them. It makes them. It makes it so really, you can play really fun things.
Really fun. Really grew on me, and I do really enjoy the Stranger mechanic. It's definitely, I would say, a lot more fun and interesting than Divinity. In that Divinity was just so consistent. Like when it was all Divinity decks, it was just when you're playing against a deck, the other player literally does the same thing every game. Like it was just too consistent.
Yes,
like you can do that if the cards are like overcosted, but they were actually like undercosted for what they did.
Yeah, no, you're right. When every game would start out with search the Black Altar for 1, you go get your Layla, and then you're able to start playing altars and Layla, and like every game with 100% consistency. So like speaking of that, when I was like the 2 games I played with Rezard, I'm not an expert by any means. I'm not trying to pretend I am, but the thing I noticed, like game 1 when I played Death Scythe, I did 2 Strangers to the Grave, 1 in the hand. And I happened to get Strangers that I wanted in the grave and 1 that I wanted in hand. The next game I did it, I got 2 cards that like I couldn't even do anything with. And so I was just like, man, this is like vastly different. And the way the deck felt, you use Death Scythe to play Sigurd from your graveyard.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That was like the only reason you play Death Scythe was so that you can play Sigurd without having to pay for him, so that you have your will open, to do all the other things and cheat things into play. So it was like the Strangers really weren't even that important, and that kind of made me frown a little bit, because the Strangers is such a cool thing, and you get to customize your Stranger deck, and they only let you put 2 of anyone, so it's really like
it's random.
And it's random, so all the games will feel a little bit different. And like I said, between my game 1 and game 2, it was vastly different. Like one game I had free will in my graveyard, and the other game I had nothing. So I like nothing I could play from hand.
Wizard, right? Black Wizard's amazing.
Yeah, Black Wizard. Yeah. So I'm just a little bit like, I don't know, like the Death Scythe's cool and everything. And I understand with Rezard, you have to have some graveyard mechanics, but it just felt like the Strangers were like an afterthought, and sometimes you're like, okay, this is cool. I don't know. Like I said, I've only played 2 games.
Yeah, I think the Strangers are for the casual players. for that deck.
Okay.
Like, for someone who wants to do something different. So, like, the first time I built Rezard, I said to myself, no dark altars. Like, I'm just gonna build it assuming there's no dark altars. So I played the other edition that gave your zombies like a bonus, and you could sack it to mill cards, and it was still crazy busted because you could easily get your Sigurd in the grave and play it from the grave with your Alia, and it just went crazy really fast.
Yeah, and
even without the altar.
That's something I thought about too. I'm like, this Rezard deck, you could probably build a rune deck and play the same deck.
Oh yeah. I could imagine instead of Rezard, you use Lich or something like that. Play the divinity card that, what is it, harvest corruption or something.
Put 10 cards into your grave.
Yeah. And then you're good to go for the rest of the game. Like, no problem. Like,
right. And then you still have the Mikage again, the best card in the deck. Like, her and a Sigurd and an altar is like,
yep,
it's so consistent. So
yeah.
It's just like at first. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the biggest thing that kills me and makes a format unfun is if there's too many OTKs. Like,
oh, gotcha.
As long as you're not just annihilating the opponent in one turn, they can't do anything about it. That is, to me, no fun. But if you have even if it's high-powered back and forth, it can still be an enjoyable experience.
Yes, that I agree with that sentiment. Like, interaction is key in my mind.
Yep.
If you're sitting there going, there's a deck in Magic called High Tide, where the blue player would just play, their turn would take 30 minutes. And because they had to make sure they could kill you that turn or they would lose. So, like, that's not fun. Like, you're just sitting there doing nothing for 30 minutes while your opponent has a turn. I mean, even in fighting games, there's games that have infinite combos that, take 10 minutes to kill your opponent. And, like, literally there's footage of an in-tournament game where the guy is, like, holding up his camera and taking selfies while his opponent is comboing him. Like, because he's not even playing. Like, he's not holding the fight stick or nothing. So...
Right.
Yeah, like, that's, to me, I think that, if you have too many OTKs and too many things where the interaction feels like it's less, that can be a problem. But so I guess we'll wrap it up there because this video's already like 40 minutes long. But any final thoughts on everything and what you would want to say to the community?
I guess stay in it. It's still one of, if not the best games that's out there right now. We're talking about a lot of the kind of more negative side of things, but I tell you what, the casual scene is fantastic for this set, and even mixing these new cards with some old Wanderer stuff is just awesome. It's been a lot of fun, really. But right now, I couldn't imagine having a great time at a tournament, seeing a lot of variety there, because these new cards are pretty crazy. But casual's great. Yeah.
So, would you recommend that people try different things to keep the game fun, alter the rules a bit as far as deck construction or anything like that?
You could do that. I know I was kind of musing earlier. We complained about if it costs more than 2, it's just flat out unplayable unless you basically play it and win. So, an interesting format could be where you limit the number of 1 and 2 drop cards in your deck, and that would really change how you'd build the deck, but also how you play, and there'd be a lot more back and forth. I could see a format like that being really enjoyable.
Okay, so something like you can only have 4 1-drops and 4 2-drops, and then
or just to make it simpler, you could say 8 or 10 cards can cost 2 or less, nothing else.
Sure. Yeah, that would be interesting.
If you want more flexibility and just a simple rule rather than,
because then you
got to choose. You got to choose between 1-drops. Yeah.
You got to choose between if you want to play a card like Mikage or if you want removal. Because a lot of the good removal costs 1.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it would be a more interesting choice. And then I think you could play more interesting combinations of cards that you otherwise would never see because, frankly, everything costing 1 or 2, you're going to see the same games each game because those cards are so inherently playable because they're so cheap.
Right.
Whereas if you are forced to play 3 and up cost cards, it would definitely be a longer game, but also you would see the more fun side of the format, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, so hang in there, guys. Think of ways to make the game more fun. I mean, I've even had people show up to casuals where they pull out like what appears to be the top tier deck, and they're like, no, don't worry, I'm not playing the combo. Like, I'm doing something totally different with this ruler.
Yeah.
And that's cool. So yeah, I would just say, like, hang in there, email the company, okay? Go to their website, click right here, contact us, boom, you can write an email. Like, let them know what you think, and try to come at it from a positive, light, and let them know that it's because you care about the game, and because, like, I agree with Josh, like, this is the best, mechanically speaking, the best card game, and it, as far as the art goes and the look, like, the cards do jump out at me and say, buy me, own me, have a playset of me,
collect me.
Yeah, exactly. And the cards have been retaining value, which is something brand new. We worked so hard to get to a point where when we open a pack and we get a card, it's actually worth more than the pack. So yeah, I really want to encourage people to try and stay positive. Like I said before, I know we've covered some things that are a bit negative, but we're trying to come at it from a critical mindset instead of a negative one, because we want the game to survive. And that's one thing I put in my email, is that I really want this game to survive. So please, as a community, band together. We are stronger together, and come at it with some tact and really think about what you're saying. So.
Definitely be constructive, I would say.
Yes.
If you just say, this new format, I don't like it, they're gonna be like, okay, ignoring message, moving on.
How do you even? Yeah. How do you
give them some actionable feedback?
Yes. And I always like to relate everything to fighting games, but like you say I suck, and someone's like, why? And you're like, well, I lose a lot. Okay, but why? Are you not anti-airing? Do you not like execute? Do you try to do a move but another one comes out because you haven't practiced? Like, there's so many like small things, like in this game, the 1-drops are too powerful. That's constructive. If you just say I don't like the format, and they're like, why? You're like, because it sucks. It's not going to do anything. So
it's stupid.
Yeah, it's stupid. I just don't like it. It's like, okay, well, yeah, nothing we can do about that. So or what their answer is, okay, if you don't like the format, we're coming out with new cards soon, so you can play with those.
Even more powerful cards.
Yeah. So, all right.
Thought those were good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Josh. And everyone else, I would love to see your comments on what you think, and I would love you to email and let me know what your scene looks like, if you're even meeting up. Some states are being more strict than others. Some game shops have closed permanently. I have seen that. So just let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.